Ever since the New York Jets moved up in the draft, it was pretty self-evident that they will be taking a quarterback in this year's draft. And when it comes to the five big names, when it comes to quarterback, I could definitely see them drafting either one. Now, I know there's some rumors out there that Josh Allen will be off the board for the Cleveland Browns, but I don't necessarily think that's official just because Hugh Jackson's talking highly of him. It's obviously likely, though, but obviously, I still look at like a guy like Sam Darnold and still probably the better player than Josh Allen. Maybe the Browns would change their mind, but who knows? So the Browns are a little bit kind of unpredictable at times. But we're not talking about the Browns. We're talking about the New York Jets this video. Now, when it comes to the Jets, we got to talk about Jets history when it comes to quarterbacks. Obviously, you could just look at Joe Namath and be like, well, they haven't had a quarterback since Namath. And obviously, we could point to that. But they did have a quarterback under Ken O'Brien and I guess Pennington. So they have some success at the QB position. But when it comes to it all, what does all these quarterbacks have in common? They're usually pretty darn good athletes or they're playmakers. Obviously, if you look at Joe Namath was definitely a gunslinging, playmaking kind of quarterback. He would move around a lot. He had one hell of an arm and all that. And then you look at Pennington. Pennington was actually a two-sport athlete, I believe. And not only that, if you look at guys similar to Geno Smith, Mark Sanchez, and Tim Tebow, obviously on paper, when you look at them, or not on paper, when you just look at them as players, you're just like, yeah, I don't want those guys as my starting quarterback. However, though, Tebow was an athlete. You can't deny that. Sanchez was also an athlete, and also Geno Smith's an athlete. So you all got to put that in perspective that those guys are all professional athletes right there. And sometimes they'll go with a gunslinging quarterback at times. I mean, Brett Favre was also an athlete and a gunslinging quarterback. Even when they had Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was a gunslinging quarterback and all that. So they like to have a guy who has that playmaking ability or that potential to be a playmaker or whatnot. And I think one thing for sure is when it comes to the Jets, one thing I don't like how they handle their quarterback systems, it's a meritocracy. It's not very competitive. And if you ever saw my video on why quarterback depth is valuable, it's because, well, if you look at the past Super Bowl teams, they usually had a good backup quarterback behind them and whatnot. Obviously, Nick Foles for Carson Wentz because you know that maybe, hey, the backup could usurp the roles of starting. Usually it's not the case unless if it happens due to injury. That's 90% of the time. But, hey, culturally, you want to keep your quarterbacks competitive. You don't want them to get too lazy out here with all these friendly rules to the offenses and whatnot. And when it comes to the Jets, it's a meritocracy where they just give the guy a job and they give them a job for a certain amount of years. And then once they're done with them, he can no longer redeem himself. And I just don't think that's very good. And if you want evidence of it, if you look at Mark Sanchez, obviously Mark Sanchez was just kind of handed the job. They kind of just started him right out of the gate for the New York Jets. And then after 2012, they give the job to Geno Smith. They just handed the job to Geno. They didn't even make it competitive for these guys. And same thing when it comes to Brett Favre and whatnot. They just came in, they just gave it to Brett Favre and whatnot. And they just kind of give it to their quarterbacks. The quarterbacks don't really feel like as if they earn it. And then once they lose that position, there's no chance in hell that they're able to redeem themselves. And that's one of my big beefs with that. And the Jets aren't the only team like that. The Chargers are also like that. They did the same thing with Drew Brees. And then when they drafted Philip Rivers and they gave him that huge contract, it was pretty blatant that they were gonna just go with Philip Rivers and let go of Drew Brees after the season, even though they started Brees over Rivers. And Brees actually had his best game by that point in his career, but they still got rid of him. So, hey, stuff like that happens and all that. And I think one thing with the Jets, they're definitely going to look for an athletic quarterback, and they might look for a smart quarterback. Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick might not be a good quarterback, but at least he had a level of intelligence right there. And same thing when it came to Chad Pennington, he had a level of intelligence right there. They like talent at the quarterback position. I mean, everyone does, but they like to have guys that kind of have this, I won't say outlier where they kind of outside themselves, but they usually like have something significant with them. And when you look at all these quarterbacks, I definitely thought Josh Allen was their kind of guy. The only issue about Allen is he grew up in kind of a area which is a small town area. I know he was born in California, but I think he lived in Montana, so definitely a small area, but talent-wise, though, he has the best arm in this draft, and I think the Jets will definitely value that arm right there. I also look at Lamar Jackson's potential possibility just because he has the best he's the best dual threat quarterback in this draft. He actually has dual threat ability with his ability to run. He actually does have a pretty good arm. I think he has a little bit more arm strength than a Tyrod Taylor, which I definitely think is nice. And then you got a guy like Baker Mayfield. He might not be very athletically or physically stout. However, though, when it comes to it, Mayfield has that playmaker ability that they might really, really want. And I definitely think they're going to draft Mayfield in this draft and whatnot. And sure, let's just say Darnell falls to them. Darnell just doesn't have that flash to him. That's the issue. I think the Jets are going to pass him. And that does not mean Darnell's down. Darnell has the highest floor out of all of them. That means he's the least likely to suck out of all these 5 quarterbacks right here. And then when it comes to Josh Rosen and all that, I definitely don't think he's that athletically stout and all that. I'm not saying he's a bad athlete. He's just not as stout as what you say Allen with his arms or Jackson with his dual threat ability. He's not Mayfield when it comes to the playmaking ability right there. Rosen just has that intelligence there that they might just want to go after him. And a lot of people are saying the Jets are going to draft Rosen. Hell, Rosen might fall in the draft, and I've talked about that in other videos. So they might pass on him. I think if there's one quarterback I want to rule out, it's Sam Darnold. And hell, I might be totally wrong on this one, but I think I'm trying to pick the Jets' brain right here. But even Darnold has that gunslinger kind of mentality. So the Jets can really go for one. But if I have to pick one, the guy that they're probably going to go after is Baker Mayfield. I definitely think that's their guy. Just comes when it comes to that playmaking ability, kind of has that personality. Feels like he could handle a big city and whatnot. And I'm not saying other guys couldn't. I'm not saying Darnell couldn't. I'm not saying Jackson couldn't. But I definitely look at Mayfield as that guy. And just assuming the fact that Allen's going to go to the Browns and then assuming the Giants are going to draft Darnell after that if they don't draft Chubb or Barkley. And I definitely put that into consideration because Mayfield definitely seems like he has that playmaking ability. And I think Jackson, I feel like they wouldn't have to move down the draft to draft a guy like Jackson. So that's why I'm going to rule him out. And I'm not saying Jackson's bad or anything. It just feels as if that Jackson's a top 10 pick. They were already in the top 10. They had to move up a handful of spots to get there and all that. So I think their quarterback is honestly going to be Mayfield. But I'm not always right. And sometimes, guys, you guys can be right at times too. So I want to hear your thoughts. Leave your comments down below. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.